said, here recently, I was kind of looking back at stories that I've only read, like, or preached on portions of the story, and I feel like I'm not giving the full story of something. It's the same as not saying it at all. So today I'm going to focus on a story that I haven't read all of it to you guys yet, because I hear it a lot. People preach this, but I feel like it needs to be said. But so if you can't, you can find your way to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 1. That's where I'm going to start. I'd like to pray over us before we begin. Lord, we just thank you. We just thank you for being able to come to you. We thank you for all the blessings that you blessed us with, Lord. And we thank you for all the good praise reports we had today. We just pray, Lord, that you continue to surprise us. In your precious and holy name I pray, amen. But 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 is where I'm going to start. And it says, but concerning these times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you. So he's like literally, there's no reason I should write to you. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that this day should overtake you as a thief. You are all sons of light and sons of the day. We are not of the night nor the darkness. Therefore let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk at night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting the breastplate on of salvation. For God did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain salvation through the Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us, that whether we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Therefore comfort each other and edify one another, just as you also are doing. Okay, this is where I started last night. I was actually studying. I've kind of been studying different topics this week, but I noticed that we always, I've heard a lot of preachers, not just me, but preach just therefore let us not sleep. Be sober, be awake, But what they were saying here was something they already should have known. There's a lot of things that we've heard so many times that it doesn't ring like it should. It doesn't resonate in our hearts like it should. Sleep, and a lot of other parts of the Bible that says sleep as if it's a good thing. Well, that kind of sleep that they're talking about there is rest, usually. But here it's talking about basically inactivity. They're using it as a bad thing, like, letting things get past us, not being vigilant. Church, I feel like the whole church of today, not just us, is sleeping on a lot of things that we shouldn't be let sleep. A lot of things are going on that's like I had a conversation with a boy yesterday that lost his child. I had so much grief in my heart for him that I couldn't hardly witness to him. Like he literally was talking to me and Crystal, and he said something along the lines of, I know you guys are more religious than I am. And he's like, I just want you to pray that he's in a better place. He didn't know. He don't know God's grace. He didn't have faith. He's not religious. I've talked to this boy. I've talked to him almost every morning. He's actually one of my friends at work. I'm sleeping on that relationship. I'm sleeping on that promise that God has for his life because I'm too embarrassed, or I just don't think about bringing up God to him. I see that as my fault. Next, I'd like us to find our way to Numbers chapter 22, verse 22. And this is where I'll be spending the remainder of the sermon, if you want to find that. verse 20, I'm sorry. And it talks about, in verse 18, it talks about Balaam being come to by Balak, saying he's going to give him gold and he wants him to come with him and to curse these people. Okay? And we're going to start in verse 20. And it says, "And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, If men come to call you, rise and go with them, but only the word which I speak to you, that you shall do." So Balaam rose in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. Okay, so Balak has actually told Balaam to come with him to curse these people. Okay? And we all know this story. I preached on it before. I'm pretty sure Trace preached on it also. But it says, verse 22, "Then God's anger was aroused because he went. And the angel of the Lord took his stand on the way of the adversary against him. And he was riding on his donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. Now the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the way and went into the field. So Balaam struck the donkey to turn her back onto the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in the narrow path between the vineyards, and with a wall on this side and a wall on the other side. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed herself against the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right hand or to the left. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam. So Balaam's anger was aroused, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you, that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, "Because you have abused me, I wish there were a sword in my hand, for now I would kill you." So the donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your donkey on which you have ridden ever since I became yours to this day? Was I ever disposed to do this to you?" And he said, "No." Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand. And he bowed, and his head fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said to him, "Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to stand against you, because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me and turned aside from me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely I would have killed you by now, and let her live." And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned, for I did not know you stood in the way against me. Now therefore, if this pleases you, I will turn back." Then the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but only the word that I speak to you, that you shall speak." So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. Now when Balak heard that Balaam was coming, he went out to meet him at the city of Moab, which is on the border of Arnon and the boundary of the it is the boundary of the territory. Then he says to Balaam, "Did I not earnestly send to you, calling for you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you?" And Balaam said to Balak, "Look, I have come to you. Now have I any power at all to say anything? The word of the God puts in my mouth that I must speak." So Balaam went to Balak, and they came to a town I cannot say. Then Balak offered oxen and sheep, and he sent some to Balaam and the princes that were with him. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So this story, we never put the pretense of what's happening in this story. God tells Balaam, if these guys come to you and sin for you, you go with them. Easy enough, right? And he tells him, but you're only allowed to say what I say you can say. I have a plan for you, and you have to speak what I say you speak. That's not too much to ask, right? He's God after all. But what does Balaam do? He changes his heart. He's like, I'm going to go to Balak, and we're going to discuss how we're going to curse these people, basically, because that's what Balak was trying to get him to do. Well, God said I could go with them. I've only changed a little bit of it. His donkey saves his life even though she doesn't have to. But what happens afterwards? Balaam's first prophecy, he's blessing these people. He builds 7 altars for them to worship God. The second time, he's blessing these people that Balak was trying to get them to curse. 4 prophecies. 4 prophecies is what God had for him. And the last one is the most important. It's actually in chapter 24. And it's actually in verse 15. It says, "So she took up the oracle and said, the utterance of Balaam the son of Beor, and the utterance of the man whose eyes are open, the utterance of him who hears the words of God, and his knowledge on the Most High, he who sleeps in the vision of the Almighty, who falls down with eyes wide open. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not now." But not near, I'm sorry. "The star shall come out of Jacob." So, like, literally, his last prophecy is prophesying the coming of Jesus Christ. If he would have slept on what God had for him, like he already tried to, if that donkey hadn't stepped out of the way and crushed his leg and laid down on him and just put up such a grief for him, he would have not prophesied the coming of Jesus Christ in Numbers. Church, God has something planned for our lives, and if we sleep on that promise, we might be cutting off his blessing in the end. We might be cutting it off at the wick. This is like a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ coming. Mm-hmm. But if he had slept on that promise like he had planned on, we don't know the outcome. People wouldn't have believed it nearly as much because it was never prophesied. Somebody that was willing to turn their back on God, like basically not turn their back, but not do the full truth of things. That's why this story is so important. Straight up, a donkey had a better chance of following the line than us. She saw evil. She was like, "No, I ain't going to get my master killed." She did better in the story than the man. The man needed extra coaxing. She was just trying to protect him, even though he was striking her. I wrote here, Balaam's donkey protected him, even if he never thought the donkey was protecting him from death. Like, we automatically go through bad things in our life, and we automatically think that, God, why? Like, why are you putting me through this, God? What have I done to you, to deserve this? Maybe it's our own doing. Maybe it's God protecting us from something else. Maybe it's God's will. It's always God's will. God has his will, whether we like it or not. Amen? Amen. And so God did this to Balaam because he told Balaam to prophesy, but Balak had told Balaam to curse the people. Like, I'm talking, these things are serious. Like, if he hadn't done what if that angel hadn't protected him and been like, the donkey hadn't protected him from that angel, those prophecies wouldn't have happened. People wouldn't have come back to God, number one, because in 2 different prophecies, he's prophesying that God will have, or basically bless them if they follow what God has for them. If they'll start, sacrificing to God, which is the Old Testament, so that they were sacrificing to God how they were supposed to be. So he would have literally changed that whole thing. The whole outcome of that story, just based off of, hey, Balak's my friend. Charles Spurgeon once wrote, "For a church to slumber is like a city asleep during the daylight. It is untimely and unseemly. Church, we can't fall asleep. We can sleep to rest, that's one thing. But when we get into the inactivity portion of it, where we're just like, well, we're saved. Oh, my church is doing really good, thank you. Is it? Are our hands outstretched? Are our doors always open? And I'm not even talking about the building, church. This isn't the church. This is a building that the church lives in. Do people know that they can call you any hour and be like, I need prayer right now? Do people know that we're willing to sit down and talk about something we don't want to talk about? We're willing to pour our hearts out to you so you can understand that you can pour your heart out to us, that we're not the same people as those that are like, we'll help you, just tell us what you need. And then you come to them and they're like, man, I don't have time right now. You know, it's Sunday. I got to be at church. It's dreadful. We can't sleep on our promises, church. If I could give you an example. Think of the years of the plague where they had these carts these men would drag and they would just bang on gongs and be like, bring out your dead, bring out your dead. Okay? And these plagues were so horrible that people they couldn't bury them fast enough, church. They literally had carts going through the streets for people just to drop their dead bodies off because they didn't have enough time to bury them the right way. Okay, now for instance, what if a physician had the cure to that plague and knew he had the cure to that plague, but instead of saving those that were being killed or duplicating it in any way, he just chose to save himself? What would you say should become of that man? Like, honestly, you know, think about it. Like, we'd be like, man, that guy doesn't deserve to live himself, but if he's taking that, like, he's taking the cure for himself or just saving himself or, you know, that's horrible. How could he do that? So many people are going to die. So many of your people are going through this plague, you know. But now think about that in this example. The world is dying of something way worse than the plague. Church, and we have the remedy. We have the cure. If we're dying ourselves of this sin, the church, the world is dying of sin. You don't believe me? Look at it. It's showing all the signs. They're giving into sin. They're falling down this stuff. It's just awful. It's only a matter of time before God gets angry. When God gets angry, people get hurt. But we have that cure. We know that cure is Jesus Christ. We know that cure. We can go there anytime and find it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yet we're keeping it for ourselves. That example I give you was to help you wake up, like I did when I heard this first example. It was actually one of Charles Spurgeon's sermons. He's like, you would honestly say that man doesn't deserve to live. He doesn't deserve that cure. Because he could replicate it, save others. He could replicate it, even save himself and others. But church, we have that remedy. If we don't save ourselves, that's one thing. But if we choose to keep God to ourselves, if we choose to sleep on God's promises, and we don't wake up to what's happening right in front of our church and right in front of our faces, then what's the difference between us, you know, oh, well, God, I made it to heaven. A little bit lukewarm, but hey, I'm on the warmer side of things. I hate to ever have that conversation with God. Church, that inactivity is going to let people get farther away from God and farther away from God. God has a promise for you. His promise for every one of us. And if, just like Balaam, we choose to only do a half of it, one of two things is going to happen. Either God's going to put you in your place. So that's what happened to Balaam. That's what happened to Jonah. Both of them ended horribly. Balaam ends up with a bum leg and a donkey that's mad at him because he beat her for no reason. Jonah ends up seeing the people that killed his people getting blessed by God. He's like, get him, Jesus, you know. But like he ends up angry because God's saving people. Church, these people of today, they're sick. They might not be sick in a sense of medically speaking, but in a sense of sin is plaguing this earth. A lot of people are sleeping. They're getting drunk. They're all these things that are, their mind is being polluted in some way, shape, or form. If you don't believe me, I've literally had a conversation with adult men like last week that I wouldn't even think about airing. I'm talking, it's a corrupt, ugly, vicious, sinful world out there, church. And if we know the remedy, why aren't we giving it out? We know that they can still be saved, yet we keep it to ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that we should be all, everybody always knows that one person that's like overly Bible thumperish and not godlike. I'm not saying to be that person. But the next time somebody says something around you that shouldn't be aired towards a person, like, at all, just be like, man, hey man, I'm a Christian. I'm a married man. Don't talk to me like that. They're going to be wondering, like, we had a conversation by him a couple weeks ago, and he didn't say anything. Why is he different now? Or church, the next time you're going to eat lunch, pray over it first. That's a big one. I always forget to. I'm not even going to lie to you. It happens a lot more than it should. We want to make a difference. Be the difference. Don't sleep on God's promises. He calls us to wake up, church. In 1 Thessalonians, he's like, I have no need that I should write to you. You're all good. But then a warning comes right after. Even if you are saved, even if you think you have it all together, which I guarantee you don't. I don't. We should be awake. We should be vigilant. You see a brother that's starting to fall or a sister that's starting to fall, reach out and hold them. Be like, man, I can't help but notice that you're going through this circumstance. I'll be praying for you. And mean it. Don't just blindly be like, I'll pray for you, and then don't. We need to be precise and awake. Not nonchalantly walking through life, but just, I'll pray for you, I'll pray for you. We got to mean it, church. We got to believe it. So who knows, those prophecies or those prayers or those late nights of us talking to somebody on the phone could be saving their life. God could have you could be basically the person that steps in like the donkey did for Balaam, saving them from utter destruction. You'd be the person that, it says in Jude that certain people will be saved as if they're being plucked from a fire. I guarantee you, it might not be that dramatic seeming to you, but you could be. I feel like when I was saved, I got plucked from the fire, church. If it wasn't for a few good men, I wouldn't be standing in front of you today. I definitely wouldn't be wearing a suit on top of that. Church, these people step in our lives, we should be doing the same. We got to keep this tradition going. We got to keep reaching out like God has called us to do. We got to be that church that they talk about here. Don't fall asleep. I don't care what the season is. We got to be awake and on point because the devil's coming like a thief in the night. Sin's coming like a thief in the night. Don't believe me? Just turn on your phone. Get on the internet. The internet is plagued with all kinds of nasty things. It's getting to the point where you can't even turn on Facebook because people actually can say what they want. I don't know why, but you can't talk hardly about God on there. But God calls us, that's why God calls us to be awake. That's why God calls us to do the things that He says, because if we don't, the church dies just like the world does. If I could, I'd like you all to stand. Brother Trey, would you close us in prayer?
Dear Lord, I thank you so much, God, for this word that you placed on Andrew's heart, Lord. I thank you so much for that donkey just speaking to Balaam, Lord. And I know many years ago I had the same donkey speak to me, God, and I ask that you just allow us to be those donkeys to others. And like what Andrew's saying is let's not sleep on others, Lord. Let's be vigilant. Let's be diligent, God. Let's even though those other people, they may be mean to us, they may smack us, they may hurt us. Let us warn them. Let's be there to help protect them, Lord. We have that cure, and it cures you, God. And I thank you so much for that. I ask that as we leave this place, God, that you just continue to remind us of that every single day, Lord. Continue to keep us vigilant, God. Continue to keep us awake. We don't want to fall asleep like Peter did, Lord. Just be with us, God. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Yeah.